Welcome to Lead with Clarity. This is a space for leaders who want to grow without losing themselves in the process. Each episode is a short reflection on leadership, influence, and the inner work that shapes how we show up for others. It's not hype, not noise, just clear thinking for the journey of leading well. Today's episode is entitled, Your Yesterday Cannot Lead Your Tomorrow. Here we go. Think about the last time you told a story about a win, a real win, one that made you feel the way that accomplishment was supposed to feel. Now ask yourself, when did that happen? Was it recent or has it been a while? That question is the core of what we're talking about today. One of the quietest traps in leadership isn't complacency in the obvious sense. It's not laziness. It's not disengagement. It's the subtle shift that happens when your best story stops being something that happened recently and starts being something that happened a few years back. And you don't always notice when it happens. That's what makes it dangerous. Holtz said something that I keep coming back to. He said, if what you did yesterday still seems big to you, you have not done much today. Simple, direct, and if you let it land the way it's supposed to, a little uncomfortable. Most of us, if we're honest, have at least one area of our leadership where yesterday is still carrying too much weight. I think about a conversation I had with a senior executive who had an impressive track record, real accomplishments, the kind that deserved recognition. But every conversation eventually circled back to the same 2 or 3 moments, the same initiatives, the same outcomes, and the framing was always historical, past tense, anchored in what was. Here's the thing. His team knew. They'd heard the stories. They admired the work. But they were also quietly wondering what was coming next, what he was building now, where the organization was headed from here. The legacy was real. The momentum had stalled. That's the gap that Holtz is pointing at. Not your past, your present relationship to your past. Here's where people get this wrong. They hear a quote like this and they think it's about dismissing what they've accomplished. They think Holtz is saying your wins don't count, that you should minimize the hard work it took to get here. And that's not it at all. The wins matter. The growth you've made is real. None of that goes away. The misread is thinking that celebrating your progress and raising your standard are mutually exclusive. They're not. One is backward-looking gratitude. The other is forward-looking accountability. You actually need both. The real issue is calibration. Specifically, what are you using as your internal benchmark for what counts as significant? Every leader has a reference point, a sense of what a big outcome looks like, what a meaningful contribution feels like. The question is whether that reference point is moving. If it isn't, your growth has effectively stopped, even if your activity hasn't. Raising your reference point isn't arrogance, it isn't ingratitude, it's the work of leadership. It's what keeps you relevant, sharp, and genuinely useful to the people who are counting on you to keep growing. So here's the question I want to leave with you. Not what was your biggest win last year, not what are you proud of, those are good questions. But the one I want you to sit with is this. Is your definition of big bigger today than it was 18 months ago? Not your goals, not your revenue targets, your internal sense of what constitutes meaningful progress. If that number hasn't moved, that's your real work. Not the next initiative, not the next hire, recalibrating what you expect from yourself. Holtz coached some of the most successful programs in college football history. He understood that the teams that stayed great weren't the ones who celebrated longest. They were the ones who reset fastest. That applies here, in your organization, on your team, in your own leadership. Gratitude for what you've built, expectation for what comes next. Those two things have to coexist. When the first starts crowding out the second, the gap opens. And it opens quietly, which is exactly why it's worth talking about. Keep your standard moving. That's what separates the leaders who have a great story from the ones who are still writing it.